Let's work. Yo, it's go time, showtime, never backing down time. One shot, yo, make it count, yo. Crunch time, shine time, make this moment my time. Get a grip, yo, ready, set, go. We bring the thunder. Bring the thunder. Let's work. Bring the thunder. Let's go. Bring the thunder. Let's work. Bring the thunder. Let's work. Yeah, it's my time, yo time. Step into the spotlight. Get lit, yo. Let yourself go. Our time, high time. Gotta go big time. This is it, yo. Never take no fight time. Grind time. Take it to the street time. Turn the roof off. Get loco. Game time, win time. We gon' bring it home time. No regrets now. Let it all go. We bring the thunder. Bring the thunder. Let's work. Bring the thunder.
Well, good evening and welcome to Mountain Bears. I'm Aeson, and of course with me tonight is Techie Joe. How are you, darlings?
I'm doing well. How about you? Wow, that repositioning of your camera and light really did a lot there. Sorry, I'm just noticing. Look, you look really good back there.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, Aeson has moved his workspaces and divided his workspaces for an unboxing video that you guys will see later this week. Aeson has a Mac he's going to be playing with.
Absolutely. So,
yeah.
Oh.
So,
it's been a week.
It's been a week. Oh, God, it's been a week.
I think everyone's just excited that, like, Mercury in retrograde is over. It's like, ding dong, the shit is dead.
It's good.
Like, I don't know about everyone else, but I think that's where I'm at. I think that's where everyone we know is at.
Right.
Like, it was definitely a communications nightmare this time.
It has been a communication nightmare.
That really seems to be where everyone's been at. Is like, can we all just
can we get along? Can we focus? Can we get our shit together and make things work? And furthermore, can Aeson get 10 minutes to enjoy his coffee before the world blows up?
I know, right? I'm gonna put my head back in now.
Where did he go? There he is. He's putting his ears in.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, I got muted. Maybe I have sound? I don't know.
Yes, you have sound.
Sorry, I was getting you, but through like a lot of static, and I was like, yeah, we gotta fix that real quick. Hi, Cassie. Hi, Shannon.
Yeah, and it's great to wait to file your taxes. Actually, I don't begin taxes until the time of Aries. Just because I'm a damn ram, I'll ram myself through them. If I sit here and do them in Piscean energy or Aquarian energy, I ain't getting them done. I'll get too emotional. Oh my God, I spent that amount of money on technology this year. No. We wait till taxes in a time of Aries when it's like, yeah, I did. And here's the other 50 fires I started with that.
Oh yeah. No, it's been a weird, especially the last week. It seems like everyone, though, seriously, communication just died, dead. Either it's just. I have to say though, it's more. It's less everyone blowing up and screaming and being just nah. It's less that it's literally everyone on the same page. I just need someone to hear the words coming out of my mouth and understand them.
Right.
It's that exasperated thing.
Yeah.
It's been a lot.
It has been. It's been a lot. This week's been a lot. We just got down with Lady Gwendolyn's Divination Night special evening. So yeah, I'm getting the Art Bell effect of producing and multi-doing shows, and I'm loving it.
It is. It's we have a lot going on. We spend a lot of
do.
time, like even if we're not on air, we're sort of on air.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of like there's other shows for other people, and yeah, we're like we tonight is like back to back.
Yeah.
Like we came off of one special edition for Lady Gwendolyn and Rowan Temple of Light. They did their Imbolc and Divination Night combo. And we got a little breather, and it was like, bathroom, tea, and then right over to this one.
It has been. But I personally, I will say this is, I used to have the, well, I don't know answer to that question of, if you weren't a psychic, what would you be doing? I know what I would be doing now. I would be in fucking radio. Howard Stern, move over. Thanks for keeping my chair warm for 20 years. Art Bell, let's power it up from midnight into the desert, and let's rock that.
Is anyone else seriously traumatized by the fact that Howard Stern is still like on air?
No, I'm not traumatized about it at all. He's one of the
I'm sorry.
rocks.
I know, but I'm still traumatized by it. Like I saw his stuff. Like this was all the way back in the 90s,
80s.
I know that's when he got his start, but like 90s is when like he became popular.
No.
I want to say. Really?
Yeah.
I thought that's when he hit like syndication. They started doing video and like yeah, I know we're both having the same reaction. Like maybe I'm wrong. Like I know he's been active since like the 70s. I get that part. But I was thinking it was the 90s that he just really kind of exploded. Yeah.
WWDC in 1981 to 1982, hosted by Howard Stern, and then he in 2000, and I know what you're thinking of. You're thinking of in January 9 of 06 when he left WWDC and went to Sirius XM.
Well, there's some of that, but it's like no, I remember him in the 90s. And I know that a lot of the because I got stuck in a conservative household, a lot of the conservative stations strangely decided to like run a lot of his content. Fox. Really big fans of Stern. Or at least were for a while. But no, I just like I remember his stuff then and just thinking like this isn't gonna last. Like some things I have horrible. There's a reason I don't read tarot and talk on the network. I have horrible predictions, at least about some things. I'll just put that out there. I do have horrible predictions.
In 75 to 81, he was at Boston University. From 81 to 85, he was at WNBC in Washington. And between 85 and 94, he was WXRK and started syndications through WXRK. And then 95 to 99, he was on Chilean, Canadian, and Colombian conversion. And then in around 2005, task changes and terrorizing radio departments. So he went over to LA for a little while and included 20-cent droplet, and he had like a 20% drop in listeners. And then he moved to Sirius XM.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's like even like in his 93 book, Private Parts, like suddenly I was a mainstream performer who had real clout in the marketplace. I was bankable. Immediately they would forget about my most controversial material and the fact that I could be real dangerous as a broadcaster.
Exactly.
You know what? But you see what I'm saying? Like
he's not even the most dangerous broadcaster. I mean, y'all got a lot of people call him offensive and stuff. Oh no! We go back to the original shock jocks.
I don't even know that, like, with Stern, it's even so much that I care that he's offensive. Like, I typically, in general, I don't care that someone's offensive. Like, fine, do you? But it was just, like, it all just seems so, like, stupid. Like, I don't mean to call him stupid. I just mean a lot of his material at that time was just, like, really?
Yeah.
You get paid for that.
Right.
Like, what? I couldn't see it as a gravy train that was going to last much longer. It's like, dude, make your money now. Sign those book deals.
Right.
Make the money and be prepared for when it's like, okay, like reality television, you know, this is going to come to an end. Like, you know, sort of like, you know, music videos on MTV. Is where I thought Stern was going to end up. It's just like all of a sudden one day it was going to be like, yeah, everyone's tired of that.
Yeah. But no. See, the original was like Wolfman Jack taking over the airways and playing those slow blues tunes of the 70s. And then you go into, you know, a lot of people think of her as a TV host, but she originally was a shock jock, Wendy Williams, out of New York, DC or Pittsburgh. When New York, when Always Room for Jello and Dave Trucks, Bill Cosby got her fired.
Okay.
Yeah, Wendy Williams would make Howard Stern look like a Navy boy.
Well, I'm just saying though, I didn't see it as this thing that was going to last. I really didn't. Like, it always surprises me when this is still a thing. Like, I don't get it. I don't get it.
Oh, and the other one that I would love, Michelle Visage, if she ever comes back to radio, I don't care where, if she goes to Sirius, we're buying Sirius. If she goes to another station, we will get it internet podcasted in, because she is a kick-ass jock.
You realize you can get a Sirius XM account and, like, listen online, right?
Yes, I realize that, but
okay.
I
was just making sure.
They have an app and all this other stuff, and no, they're not sponsored, and I think they're crappy. But if I have to go there, one, if they buy Aeson, you know, Sirius, come talk to me. We can discuss this. You know, because radio is radio.
Well, now let's clarify. We are in West Virginia,
and
well, now I want to clarify the Sirius XM satellite radio concept really sucks here. Like, it's a great idea, and if I were in a more flat state, I'm sure I would have flippin' loved it.
Well,
we're in West Virginia.
With the 5G expansion going on, Sirius XM is going to get a kick-ass boost to their broadcasting area. Like, if I was looking at Terraform or satellite, I'd be going for satellite right now because of that 5G expansion, which has been in hot news here lately because the FCC is being dicks again.
Yeah.
Oh, it's going to crash the planes. No, it will not. You said that about when cell phones became a major thing. You said that about, and they have had 3 years to test this and to make sure that this band level that they don't belong in, that their altimeters don't belong in, will not be affected. Yeah. Like,
it is totally screwed up. But I do want to go back and say, though, like, I'm talking about literal satellite radio, like in your car. Now, in your house, it's a whole other thing. You could mount that wherever you need to mount the receiver.
Right.
But like, driving around West Virginia with it, I took the free trial with my car. I was stoked. I was excited. I was disappointed.
Yeah.
Like, you could not drive around West Virginia and actually listen to anything because, like, you know, she'll be coming around the mountain when she comes. You know, I mean, it's just in and out and spotty, and it breaks down, and you're just sitting there like, yeah, I ain't paying for that. Like, I took the 3-month trial, 6 months, I think I got when I bought the car. Right. And I was like, yeah, no, I'm not signing up for that. And like, of course, they call. It's like joining a cult. It really is. It is impossible. They will do anything to get you to keep it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like she's offering me like a free year. Like I've been like spammed my mailbox straight to hell. And I just finally, with this woman on the phone, I said, look, I'm in West Virginia. It doesn't work. Like I've tried.
Mm-hmm.
It's great if I sit in a parking lot and
Mm-hmm.
don't move.
Mm-hmm.
But the minute I try to drive through West Virginia, it's garbage.
Mm-hmm.
I have better luck with keeping a radio station, a Terra station, than a satellite.
Right.
It doesn't work. It's garbage. It is absolute garbage in my car.
Mm-hmm.
I said, so no, I'm not paying for it, and I don't even care that you're going to give me a year free. I don't care.
Right.
Like, I don't want to have this conversation again. It's, what are you going to do in the next year?
Mm-hmm.
Are you launching more satellites? Are you specifically covering West Virginia better? Like, no. Cancel my account. I'm sorry. I'm just not your customer.
Right.
Can't.
You can't.
I can't.
Right. But, here's the thing, and this is what people don't understand, is we've got Bezos launching a satellite net that'll be the internet. We have 4G coming out, which is going to be a lot wider spectrum of broadcasting bands. So, yeah, Sirius XM's, if you're betting on stock, I'd put some into Sirius XM.
Well, I'm just wondering where we're going to end up in a few years. Like, how ubiquitous is internet going to end up being? And I'm looking specifically at the U.S. I think the world might be a little bit of a stretch. Mm-hmm. I think it'll get there. I'm just saying right now. Mm-hmm. A fairly large market. Mm-hmm. If you kind of stretch around between the U.S. and European countries and just look at that equator band
mm-hmm.
of countries, I'm just wondering how ubiquitous internet's going to end up being, that we're effectively, like, I'm wondering if there's just going to be a day where you're just online.
Yeah.
And that's it. Like, it doesn't matter where you go, doesn't matter what you do, doesn't matter where you're at, doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
You're just online.
Yeah.
And it just connects and it just does the thing. And we start treating it more, like it's just air.
Yeah.
And like I'm wondering how long.
7 years.
No, well, wait for my question before you get there.
Okay.
I think 7 years is probably short for what I was about to say. I'm wondering how long until we get to the point that internet isn't something we pay for. It just is. That it starts to replace the actual Terra radio. Now, I know that's going to come with drawbacks and side effects, like more ads, more, promotional content, more.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm wondering if there's a day in which that totally replaces like the stereo in your car. Your car will be fully connected to the internet anywhere in that equator band. And, you get constant advertising. You have great selection of programming to listen to watch even. Your real live diagnostics are going up from your car. Mm-hmm. All of this stuff is happening. I'm just wondering how many more years till we get there. I mean,
I'd say 7.
Elon Musk is basically kind of doing a fair amount with like Tesla. And then there's Neuralink.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to Neuralink. I think it'll be a wonderful thing for paraplegics. I think it'll be a wonderful thing for quadplegics and anybody with disabilities.
See, now that's my one problem with Neuralink that I keep stumbling on. Is we're going to be talking about controlled motion, but that's all. Like, effectively, you're like, follow along with me.
Okay.
Is we're looking at creating the same experience for quadriplegics and paraplegics that amputees have, which is a sensationally, non-responsive limb being physically manipulable. So, sort of that, like, Stepford Wives moment where you could literally set your hand on a stove. Physically, you can do that. But you won't be able to feel shit.
Yeah.
Like, talking about a high-level quadriplegic, no feeling.
Well, here's a debatable factor of this, and this is something that I don't know if it's out. I haven't looked into it research-wise. I'm looking at it through my eyes. It'll be like a USB chip-to-chip communication.
Well, yeah, but most of what they're talking about is like only like 1,024 channels. I think with 1,024 channels, you can definitely do motion. I don't think you can bridge the gap for full, not at the 1024 level, for full sensory information.
I think you can bridge the gap for most of it if you're putting the one receiver at the cortex of the brain. The other receiver goes at the end of the break.
Potentially, but it's still not a lot of channels of data. Like, when we talk about nerve sensation, that is a very multifaceted thing.
Right.
Like, that's millions.
Right.
Of impulses and signals and connections and a collection of data that's all happening.
Right.
That was where it was like I had the one moment where I'm like, that's really cool. And I'm sitting here going, but that's sort of like people who have an amputation and get a prosthetic that is, that they learn to control, that is a electrical, mechanical prosthetic that they learn to control by signaling different muscles. And I'm going, but that's still, you're not going to know if you slam it in a car door. You're not going to know if you're touching something that's 4,000 degrees. You're not going to know if, like, your child is holding your hand. You're not going to feel it.
Right. You're thinking of the motor biotics of it. However, what I'm thinking of is more so, let's say your brain is one network. Your cognitive cortex is one network. Your other network is the break in that network chain is at your C2 thing. So you have a chip here, a network chip here at the cortex thing. You have another chip here at the break at the C2 on the ascending and receiving end. And it's basically Bluetoothing the impulses.
Well, yeah, and theoretically, if you could just sit there and take all of the different connections within that, within the spinal column, and just literally map it out, like what's the pinout, figure out the pinout of each end, and then effectively do a conversion. But my understanding of why that's not necessarily the easiest thing in the world is that you don't, there's just so many connections that, like, we're talking about tiny strands of, physical material that isn't really been properly human interfaced yet. Like, so part of me just keeps feeling like Neuralink almost sounds like, Dr. Frankenstein in a lab throwing electricity at, his creation. And it's like, well, what does this do? And what happens if we plug it up over here? And, like, yeah, dear, like, I think it sounds great, and I think the long-term future of it is probably amazing.
Right.
Or whatever derives from it, if this isn't the thing.
Right.
But the current iteration, I keep coming back to that, and I'm like, see, that part just doesn't sound all that amazing. Now, the part where he was talking about, we're probably a couple of generations off of like visual overlay and reproduction of sight. That's, I think, probably in hearing as well, although I don't know how the deaf community is going to take that, like one more thing that replaces hearing. The deaf community's been very odd about trying to be fixed. They're very anti that.
Depending on which, but a lot of them are, a lot of them aren't. It depends on which segment of that community they are. If they are post-hearing, i.e. they lost their hearing, they're like, yeah, bring it back. But if they are born deaf, they're very much like, I haven't needed it yet, so why do I need it now?
Well, and I've definitely heard those arguments.
Yeah.
That there are a lot of people who have lost their hearing through a traumatic incident after a long life of hearing. And it can be very problematic depending upon where you are in your life to try to move past that and learn a new language, find a new community, deal with the loss of, a lot of people who don't know how to interact with you now.
Right.
Versus, yes, people that are like, I'm not broken. This is, I was born this way. Right. Or at such an early age, close enough.
Right.
Like, if you can't remember in hearing, then how would you...
Yeah, right.
This is my life. Like right now, if I got infrared vision, I've never had infrared vision. I don't see infrared. Most humans don't. I don't know that we even have a human that sees an infrared. But if you were to suddenly drop that on me, I mean, I think it would highly change like my visual perception. And I don't know that I would want it or not want it.
I think it would depend on what it would provide me. And this has always been my thing with adaptations. What will it provide me? It's like when they've recommended back surgery or the biomeds, what will it provide me? Well, you won't be in pain anymore. I haven't seen one person yet that has not had an implant done or a fusion done that doesn't live in pain. I haven't seen it yet, but try me again.
Well, still, but then again, we've been using implants for Parkinson's, which, can dramatically change the experience of Parkinson's disease.
Right.
So, and I mean, depending upon how you define pain, because I know for a lot of people with Parkinson's, it's not just that there's pain, but there's also the emotional pain, the frustration of a neurodisabling disease coursing through your body, slowly taking away your ability to motorly interact. Until finally you somewhat become trapped in your own body, waiting for the point in which your body effectively can no longer control involuntary functions.
Right.
So that you will pass on.
Right.
I mean, that's, that's its own certain kind of pain.
Right.
Like, it's not the pain we first think of, like, ow, my back hurts, ow, I can't, I have cold water on my leg, like my literal symptoms, or the numbness and tingling, or the shoulder pain, or like any of those things that I've gone through with my neck issues. And, that's the pain we think of. But then there's the other side of pain, or the other side of any condition, which is the other pain, The
Right.
pain that you can't write a prescription for, you can't, numb it.
Right.
Well, you can try,
Yeah.
Drugs and alcohol do that for a lot of people for a lot of pain.
Right.
Not that that's the best solution, please seek help.
Yes.
But that's its own kind of pain.
It is. It is its own kind of pain. So let's look at some of the other things. Now, I just sent this to you. If you need me to send it to you again, I will.
No.
Okay. You can go ahead and lead into this one.
Is that the new study reveals?
Yes.
All right. New study reveals LGBTQ plus people leading the way in COVID-19 vaccinations.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, a new study suggests that LGBTQ plus people are leading the way when it comes to getting vaccinated against COVID-19, as well as being more concerned about the pandemic and more confident in the vaccines, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention reported. The report's titled COVID-19 Vaccination Coverage and Vaccine Confidence by Sexual Orientation and Gender Identity, United States, August 29th through October 30th, 2021, indicated that though there was some variation across ethnicities, the overall picture was fairly consistent. So,
Yeah, I think it's
or fairly
interesting.
constant.
Right.
Excuse me.
Yeah, but I find it interesting. Do you think it's because we still hold the trauma from the 80s?
I think that's at least one level removed from. I think it's related, but I don't think that's it.
Mm-hmm.
I think from the 80s, we created a community at least surrounding health.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, normally about sexual health and wellness. And I think born out of that is having one more thing that we can instantly see. And I do think I think there are some people having a very 80s reaction.
Right.
As in, like, what's old is new again. Going to funerals every week, hearing every week about how this person died, that person died, this other person died. Does sound familiar. To early HIV AIDS epidemic. Like, I don't think there was any person not having flashbacks.
Right.
Like, if you live through that and you're going through this, I doubt you're not having a moment.
Right.
Like, this feels the same.
Right.
But then I also think that some of that is, once that became part of the equation, I think a lot of people may have, taken that 80s experience and moved right in. But I also think there are enough people with like an awareness and just a general health awareness out that are in the LGBTQ plus community to understand that there's a lot of similarities here, and this in some directions is worse, in some directions better. That we're talking about very similar things. That while they're kind of flip opposites in some ways, like HIV you can get today, totally untreated. You should have general life, expectancy of several years before this starts to become, before you start dealing with the complications of AIDS. Versus with COVID-19, you have a couple of weeks at most of an incubation period, and then you are at your pinnacle apex. Dealing with the worst parts of this. Then we have the unknown of going forward, which we've
Right.
already started to, through the course of this, get some speculation on.
Right.
As to what that's going to look like. We've seen reports about, lowered testosterone, lowered reproductive health, in terms of like lowered fertility is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
Long-lasting lung effects, potential brain effects. Like there's a long list here, and
Right.
we're still early enough on. We don't know what we don't know, so we
Right.
don't
And
know.
we always have, and right now we're not even sure how long haul exists.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, first of all, nobody knows why, because we haven't seen long haul COVID. But at the same time with this, that's what I'm saying. I wonder if a lot of older gay population was having flashbacks of the 80s, when no, it was, oh, you got AIDS, you're dead. 2 weeks, months, 4 years, gone. And that, brought back echoes for our community and was like, oh no, we've done this. We know how to get through this. Because I'm sorry, if you need to know and we've had to educate doctors so many times about the STI panels and this stuff. Go ask the gay guy, because we get that. It's like, you come out, especially around me, you come out, you get the talk, and it's better than any father talk you ever got of like, okay, you now get to do this, and here's your two options.
Well, yeah, and that's a conversation, honestly, I think most everyone should end up having. Like, I'm more traumatized that, like, straight people don't get that conversation. Like, you've got to be somewhere in the community to get the conversation of, like, here's your risk factors across multiple, sexually transmitted infections. Here are, a list of sexual practices that will increase those risks. Here's a list of ways you can prevent that. But your body, your sex life, your choices, and, made in with consent of other partners, however many or few those may be, this is what you need to understand about your risk factors, and that, no, you really need to make sure that you're getting tested, that, this is not, there's no slut shaming here.
Right.
Like, there are people that literally have one partner in their entire life, and that partner gives them HIV. Like, there's a transmission there. Right. And so it's not like the more dicks you juggle, the higher your risk is.
Right.
Theoretically, yes, but functionally, like, it takes one. That's it. Like, you can skip the other 999, which I think is roughly the number of sexual encounters for HIV through bottoming. And you can, like, skip the other 999, and the 1 in 1,000 could be your first and only. So, like, forget trying to shame people into feeling like their sluttiness is why they have an STI. Like, that's the part I hate.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Plus, there's a whole list of other things there.
Right.
Yeah. No. And there is some similarity there if you start looking at, our current situation.
Right.
Is one cough, one sneeze, one person. That's it. That's all it takes. You can do everything else right. I think there are a number of people, statistically, that have gotten sick despite doing everything they possibly can.
Right.
And still. Because again, we've gone through this and said, look, these are your best chances.
Mm-hmm.
Like, being very careful here. These are your best chances for avoiding.
Right.
These are the best things you can do to help you avoid it. No one ever said this is the 100% gold standard guarantee you won't get it.
Right. And that has occurred with COVID, that has occurred with AIDS, that occurred with SARS, that occurred with the bird flu, that included with the Swiss flu, the Swiss flu, that was the 50s, that included with the influenza of 1918. These are best practices. These are best practices.
The weird part is, I think that members of of the LGBTQ plus community get it.
Right.
Like, I think at some point, a large majority of us, I won't say everyone, but a very large majority start having to deal with statistics.
Right.
And understanding their choices and understanding, protection models.
Mm-hmm.
And understanding risk factors and, like, here, make your intelligent choice.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're not going to people are into what they're into.
Mm-hmm.
People do what they do.
Mm-hmm.
It is better if, and this is typically considered worst sexual health advice ever. But I've always found it like it's the most honest.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to go do what you're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
If you are going to go to an inner city and hit a bookstore, say in New York, and you're not going to take any condoms with you, you're going to do intravenous drugs, you're going to do all these things, and you can either do that knowing the risk factors and taking the best precautions you can, which is testing, making sure to treat anything that you do get, make sure that you are protecting the health of others by testing frequently and making sure to get that treatment and not spread to others. Like, that's your best shot. Like, again, no judgment. That's, if that's what you're doing. Now, if you're showing up and no one's ever told you the risk factors and you're not really making an intelligent decision here, you're just doing the thing that feels good because you like it, but then you're not, aware of the risks that it poses to you. You're not aware of the risks that it poses to others. You're not aware of the things that you can do to protect yourself. You're not aware, like, just the constant, you're not aware, you're not making a decision.
Right.
You're bumbling blindly through the world. And, I have a bigger issue with that. Not from the perspective of the person doing it, because they were going to do that anyway.
Right.
It's from all the missed opportunities that literally anyone who came in contact with this person that could have talked to them in a non-judgmental way. Every healthcare provider, every, member of the community, every person who works at a, community center could have had to impact this situation. That's where I have the problem with, is like, how?
Well, and it's because we have to go and try. I'm sorry, we are still training. I have had arguments with doctors over testing before. I have literally cursed a doctor out and go, "Who the fuck are you compared to the CDC? How dare you make these judgments about my healthcare?" Even SuperDoc, we've had to train him about, no, you actually need to run this test and this test and this test in conglomeration with these tests because it shows a more clearer picture here. And it takes a bit of training, and I'm like, okay.
Well, and there's a lot of broken assumptions there.
Yeah.
Like, that's the bigger part. One, this is, like, hi, you're a doctor, not a PhD, an MD.
Mhm.
or a DO,
Mhm.
you're the person in charge of this gateway called healthcare.
Mhm.
And why do I have to explain to you?
Mhm.
Like, I get it for really, like, older doctors,
Mhm.
but I'm like, I've run into some younger ones that I'm like, are you flipping kidding me right now?
Yeah. Do you have a
Like,
brain? Yeah.
is
But
this
no.
like, are you, like, literally, it starts to feel like, are you pranking me? Like, am I on an episode of Punk'd?
Right. Well, it's
You know, like,
my famous, my famous "you're fired" moment was with the doctor, and it's like, okay, it's my birthday, so that means it's time to get my lovely test work done. He looks at me, lost, and I'm like, okay. So you missed the after-school special in med school, got that. All right, these are the tests I need to run. And he looks at me and goes, you've been in a monogamous relationship for over 20 years. Continually, one right after another. Why do you have to worry about this? Who said it was monogamous?
well, and one, like, that's before you even get into the concept of, is it really monogamous if it's just serial monogamy?
Uh-huh.
Like, it's not one partner, it's multiple partners in a
Yeah.
20-year period.
Yeah.
And all of the partners that they have serially monogamously been in a relationship with over that 20-year period. Meanwhile, you're going to look at me in this day and age
Mhm.
of high divorce rate, of, one of the most popular reasons for divorce or breakup being cheating.
Uh-huh.
Like, and you're gonna like assume anything.
Right.
Like, that's what kills me. Is this, like, there's a lot of assumption there.
Mhm.
Like, for those of you who watch House, you'll know this line too well. Everyone lies.
Mhm.
And I get why doctors and medical professionals have to think that way.
Right.
Because, people will lie about all kinds of things.
Mhm.
Also, people lie to themselves, which will cause them
Mhm.
to misrepresent to you
Mhm.
what they're doing, who they are, how they live.
Mhm.
For any number of reasons.
Right.
But to sit there and make the assumption that on this one thing,
Mhm.
that they're going to be not the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help them God.
Mhm.
And it could potentially be that they're having sex with, like, 14 other people than their spouse.
Mhm.
And potentially the spouse is sitting right there.
Mhm.
Like, right there.
Uh-huh.
Like,
yeah, and Brenda brings up that even if it was monogamous, it only takes one cheating moment. Well, not only that, at this time that I had this argument with this lovely doctor, I had just left the nursing industry, and this was during the pre-MRSA, the MRSA outbreak. This was during, a lot of high-risk nursing behavior, and I worked in long-term care, so we got a lot of that post-high-risk behavior to deal with.
well,
And if
and
I
then
had
nursing
$1
homes.
for every time that I came home and had to drop my uniforms into hydroperoxide, I'd be a millionaire.
Yeah. Well, not to mention, people hear nursing home, think old people, and assume, like, paragon of virtue somehow, and jump right to the idea that cookie baking grandmas don't have syphilis or gonorrhea or chlamydia or HIV or, that it just can't happen. And it's like, did you, like, really? Like, before they called them STIs, they called them STDs, and way back when, they used to call them venereal diseases.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah, like, did you miss it? Did you miss Grandma had a life before she ended up here.
Yeah, like, I'm sorry, you can bake cookies for your grandma, or, bake cookies for your grandkids, and be ass up in a sling for 20 years before that.
Right.
Like, it happens. It, like, you know, we didn't invent sex yesterday.
Right, and I think we cut.
Sarah says, came right in on Grandmas with Syphilis, and I'm not disappointed.
But, you know, here's the factors, and here's the factors that people do not realize, especially during my time of nursing. I was caring for the grandmas and grandpas, and for some reason, I don't know why people think that, you know, as soon as you get the word grand in front of you, your sex life is over.
No.
Okay. Furthermore, there were relationships going on in the nursing home. And in my day, it was trained, we shut the door and leave them the hell alone because that's their personal rights.
It is. Well, and then you also have to deal with dementia and the disinhibiting aspects of dementia. You know, she may have been, you know, a virgin until marriage and only been with one man who is completely faithful to her all the way through their marriage. But then the dementia kicked in and, well, grandma became a slut. Is a thing that families of dementia patients sometimes have to accept. It's hard. It's tough. Like, all of a sudden, she is cussing like a sailor and, like, screwing every man that walks past her. And it's because this human being had these sexual thoughts, and because they had executive function in their brain, they made different choices.
Right.
That told them, this is against my beliefs, this is against my blah, blah, blah. Blah, blah, blah. This is a bad life choice. This will ruin my marriage. There's lots of... This is called inhibition. Right. These are the reasons you don't do this shit.
Right.
To then have that part of your brain, as well as many others, eroding, totally changes.
Well, not only that, but their life, you know, they did not publicize... I don't know how many times I heard from families, I don't know why she's doing it. And this is not with dementia. This is with, like... you know, paraplegic or whatever, or, you know, had a stroke or whatever. And when I say whatever, it's not that I'm brushing it away. It's that diagnosis is 5 chart pages too long for me to talk about on the show. Yeah. We don't know why she's this way, but she's been going after men since, you know, he passed away.
Like, you know, hi. Well, and even medication changes can have severe impact on people.
Right.
You know, I know, well, and certain medical diagnoses as well. But no, medications can also have dramatic effect. I believe it was Lexapro back in the 90s. Right. That a lot of people started taking, and it had a weird effect on inhibition, and it became very disinhibiting for some people who were prescribed it. Right. And you suddenly had people that, you know, seemed to have their shit together, and, you know, they were not someone you'd expect, having affairs left, right, and center on their spouse.
Exactly.
All because this medication started to affect parts of their brain that said, we don't do that.
Right.
And here's why.
Right.
And all of a sudden, you know, like, enough people did that now there's a medication warning. Okay, that's in the 90s. I do know of someone who had that happen to them.
Right.
That person is now in her 60s, soon to be 70s. You know, she's not too far off that. That period, I really sincerely hope that, you know, a doctor had the forethought that if you suddenly lost your inhibitions and you started doing all of this, we need to run some blood work. Like, let's be honest. like if you're all of a sudden making, totally different life choices,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that you've made those with any kind of protection, any kind of like talking about sexual health histories, or if they were just completely in the moment impulsive. You don't know who that was.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't ask for a condom. You didn't care that there was fluid exchange. You might have done some drugs while you were at it.
No. But the other part here, and this is the part that people do not realize a lot of times, is, and it's being pointed out in break room conversation and, different Facebookers here of, grandmas and grandpas used to be swingers and used to be this, and it wasn't common knowledge. And then we still have the 60s and 70s generation are now hitting that geriatric stage, and it's scary. And I'm going to say it's going to be scary for Alzheimer's patients that go back and think it's 1969 or think it's 1972. That's going to be interesting. Those are the patients I used to love. One of my favorite patients used to run a general store. And the only way that sometimes I can get her to calm down is hand her my checkbook. Now, that woman had dementia and could not tell you what she had to eat, but she can balance your books to the penny, and it was scary. She actually found one day the nursing home administrator was in, and this was a small nursing home, so he done multiple things.
Hey, Ashley.
He was in, and she was leaving. She had to get to the store, whole 9 yards. And I finally looked at him and said, do you have any accounting books? She doesn't even have to do them. I mean, you don't even have to take them, but do you have any accounting that she could do? It'll calm her down so much. He says, oh, yeah, I've been working on this for weeks. Here, see if she can find where $3,000 went. And actually found out that he was underpaying 3 nurses and overpaying 2 nurses.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I love that.
I love that.
But no, dementia is... dementia is so hard to explain to people, and I struggle with it. And I've lived through it with 2 family members.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no easy, there's cute little definitions and there's cute little ideas that float around the world about what dementia is.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man. If you take those and you try to deal with someone with dementia...
You have to learn the dementia patient. Now, another one of my favorites, I didn't have a problem with her. She didn't have a problem with me because I had dark hair and a deep voice, and it was just all smooth sailing. Well, yes, honey, I'll go take a shower. But you send a blonde in there or a female to go in and take care of her, she'll come running out of the room thinking that she's the most terror on earth.
Mm-hmm. And there's one, it's individual. Everyone's dementia experience is unique.
Yes.
It is very individualistic. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's brain death, but it's not when we talk about total function of the brain and all the millions of things your brain does. Mm-hmm. And we're talking about the death of that because this is what dementia is. It's brain death. Mm-hmm. Slow, typically, brain death. And we want to try to talk about the stages of dementia. Don't ever read that and think that they all happen you're stage 1 here, and then it's a sudden precipitous drop, and you're stage 2. This is all an interweaving web.
Right.
Of sometimes you have a late stage dementia patient that is still fully capable of speech, fully capable of, say, dressing themselves, or toileting, or but they have major deficits in other areas,
right?
To which it equates. And then the unspoken part of dementia, and the one that it can be the most confounding, are moments of lucidity. And people think this is that I don't even know how to best describe it. It is literally a period of time that for some reason unknown, because we don't understand enough about dementia
Right.
and how dementia works
Mhm.
to really get into like, why does this happen?
Mhm.
But there can be moments where the brain is fully functional.
Mhm.
All the lights are on, everyone is home, everyone is at their battle stations, and they are walking through life like they just took a nap, woke up, and they are very refreshed and ready to go.
Mhm.
And that can last for a few minutes, a few hours, a few days.
Mhm.
And when it stops, it's like a light switch. Everything powers down. And it may never happen again. It may happen tomorrow. None of this of what they do in that period forms new memory, because that's one of the key problems of dementia is the inability to form new memory.
Mhm.
It can be great and wonderful, and like we see it a lot in movies, used to be like this last moment where mom or dad or grandma or whoever was fully there and everyone got to say their goodbyes and express love and affection and, you know, find out, you know, where the hidden what the fuck ever was. And like, that's the movie version.
Right.
This could literally be like 1 minute they are your, you know, stage 3 dementia or parent with dementia sitting in a corner who can't, you know, wants to go home, and the next minute they are in the car driving with your children, their grandkids, to wherever, you know, to take them to the park and get them ice cream, you know, because grandpa's here today, and they go have a lovely 3 hours. And before they can get back in the car with those grandkids and get home, somewhere along there, they forgot they have grandkids, forgot they have a car, forgot, just wander off. They don't know where the grandkids are. They don't remember where home is. They, you know, that's it.
Right. But it
It's
also
very scary.
really depends on the situations. I'm sorry, I've seen dementia patients that are in what I call chain reactional behaviors, and it switch out the person in that chain, and that chain falls totally apart. Like, like they've gotten themselves to where they, you know, yeah, they forget things, but it's Tuesday, so on Tuesday they have fishes and chips, and at 5 o'clock is dinner, and they're able to hold that together.
To some degree, yes. It all can kind of depend.
Yes.
Now, I think we all have a certain familiarity with pattern.
Right.
And it's not, and there's been an argument and debate as to whether that's part of memory and forming new memory, or if there's a different part of the brain that actually handles like the continuous recognition of pattern that may deteriorate typically later in dementia.
Right.
So that, and especially for people like if you're a good Catholic and you only eat fish on Fridays, or you have to only eat fish, or anyway, you know what I'm trying to get at.
Right.
That you eat fish on Fridays, then you're gonna, you know, and you've done this since childhood. Those are things that will stick with you. Like you can forget everything else, like, but you can link the concept that, you know, you should have fish because like it's Friday.
Right.
Like somewhere in your brain, every 7 days, you know, you have to consume, you know, fish on Fridays.
Well, and you know, that's how I think Tom Girardi was able to keep things moving as long as he was able to.
Okay.
He was a patterned person, and he had the. And right now, he's thinking he's defending another case, but it's actually him. And I think that we're going to see things, and that's why, you know, like, you know, last year this time he was speaking for the California Bar Association, giving classes. is because that was so much ingrained in him that's part of the tape that's still working. And his life was patternized. It's Monday, 9 a.m. I got to be in the office. We do this till 12:30. I have dinner, blah, 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 blah. And it was fine until the pattern cracked out.
Right. And a lot of people see that. That's also typically how a lot of people's families start figuring out that someone has dementia.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's also been some, studies / research and a little bit of anecdotal evidence that highly intelligent people can actually retain higher amounts of function longer than others with less education and less mentally demanding jobs.
Right.
In such that you can, and especially if you're doing like the mini mental status exams or even the long form versions, that higher intelligence can, in many ways, like these tests are kind of middle of the road for like all intelligence levels, and so you can have people that fail it but don't have like dementia or any problem, and then you can have people that pass it but are severely affected.
Right.
Not to mention time of day and everything else. All of those things contribute, but then you do have people with very patterned lives. And most of us do, surprisingly. You don't think you do, but you do. You have a very set routine, especially as you age. Like your life becomes very routine.
Right.
Especially when you don't have like kids to drop off at school and soccer practices to keep up with and all this other crap. You have a pretty set routine. Right. And it's really easy to just kind of follow that routine. It's when people have new information that's when you start to see the effect of dementia.
Right.
Because now, like, there's this whole plasticity concept that, got really big, I think, like 10 years ago or something. About like, being able to process new information and handle new information, and that, you could train your brain to be younger. I still kind of call a little bit of bullshit on that. I think you can help. I think you can help. But I don't think you're going to like, make your brain 20 again. And I don't think you need to. Not a medical opinion. I'm just saying, I don't think that exists. But there's things that are a struggle for everyone at like specifically an elder stage in life. And then there are things that you realize that nothing new is going in. They're not processing new information at all. Any change to routine, gone. It's not that grandma forgets that she has to go to, a baby shower this week. It's that anytime someone tries to schedule something with her that isn't part of that normal routine, in one ear, out the other, it will not settle. It, like, she can put it on the calendar. You can watch her write it. You can call her 15 minutes before. She ain't going to be there.
Right.
Not because she doesn't love you or care or want to do it, because
it's not on the tape to do.
It's not.
So, this kind of leads us into our next topic. Judge's orders. There's two topics I want to. Let's take up Biden administration first.
Okay.
The Biden administration is paying survivors benefits to LGBTQ plus elders. For those that don't remember, we covered where the Trumps were fighting to have to pay senior care, fighting to pay survivor benefits.
Yeah.
They ruled in favor of the parents, in both cases in 2020, but Trump administration was appealing, and it's like, no, sorry. So the Biden administration has dropped this. Thorne, who spent 30 years with her late partner Meredith Brown, now receives $1,849 a month, twice of what she was receiving prior to being paid survivor benefits, according to Times. Thorne also received a one-time payment of $72,000 for the benefits that she was denied.
Yep, since 2015.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that. Here's my problem with the whole fight is this is a situation that fundamentally rejects the idea
Mm-hmm.
at its very core, despite all overwhelming evidence
Mm-hmm.
that these are people in a relationship equivalent to marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why is this bouncy ball hard to follow? They are following the exact same kind of things that every other couple does.
Right.
And like, it's open and shut. It shouldn't be that hard. The first time someone brings it to your attention and you can clearly see it, like it exists, I don't know how anyone even thought they were going to continue to do this.
Right.
Like, other than to just be obstinate and hope these people die before they can, exhaust all their legal maneuvering.
Well, not only that, but they were busy borrowing from Social Security to pay for a wall. Now they have to make up the payments. And this is a callback to Tuesday's show. I really wish this story had broke before then. But U.S. judge orders nursing agency to pay $1.56 million for trafficking Filipino nurses.
Holy crap. I'm sorry. Oh, there it is. Okay. I don't know if I either closed it or what I did.
Right.
But good God. What? Jesus. For recruited from the Philippines and oh my God. So basically, like, we're going to, that's a horrible case.
Right.
And yeah, that's, I can understand why that comes under Trafficking Victims Protection Act.
They're also
because,
finding this in Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, also, of them trafficking people over and using them in the healthcare field, paying them less than what the agency nurses were making, because this is an agency. And for those that don't understand agency work, it's when you don't work for the hospital, you work for a company that employs the hospital, and travel nursing is really big. We currently have people in the Congress, instead of wanting to limit the CEO, whose most CEOs of hospitals' salary has increased over the year, but now they're wanting to put a controlled limit on how much agency nurses are paid.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. Well, and you notice that, like, it's now become, like, traveling nurses as a concept didn't seem like that big of a threat to the, like, medical, like, to hospitals, to the entire medical environment. When that was making up a very small portion of their staff, that it was a lucrative field. It helped to cover the gaps that many hospitals were facing, at least short term, until they could hire full-time employees.
Right.
But then the gap grew.
Yeah.
And became
massive. To grow. And it's continued to grow. And it will continue to grow as long as hospitals do not provide for their nurses. Hospitals pay less than that. And hospitals, continue to treat their nurses like shit, requiring them to work 16 to 18 hours, declaring a state of emergency in the hospital. So they require them for 24 hours, and then they're allowed 4 hours off, but not off-site. Yeah.
Yeah. I just sit here with this, and what I start to extrapolate from it is I think we're going to start to see this happening in other fields.
Right.
Like, we've been talking about gig economy for a while now. Like, it's been hot news. It's been a hot thing. Like, but that's the next thing.
Right.
Like, in terms of when you're looking at nurses, you need to also, and traveling nurses, you need to start looking at the gig economy concept. It's been small.
Right.
And it is ever growing. And at what point are we going to see reflected in, mainstream business exactly what's happening here? Where, one, we start trying to human traffic, if that's, and frankly, that's already happened.
Yeah.
And two, with the whole underpayment and everything else. But two, when these businesses start to balk and want legal protections to cap pay and to cap. So now there's a maximum wage that you can make in each of these fields. Because they find the rates extortive. And it's like, interesting.
Yeah.
Because that's fundamentally what they're saying.
Pay your CEO, not your CEO, who is there for board meetings, there for those things. You want to increase his pay, but you didn't increase your own nurses' pay or regulate their schedule or give them more benefits. You just attempt to enslave them. This is why, and I was watching a TikToker and I really like her, and I can't open TikTok because it'll start playing, but I will send it into the break room. And she's an old floor nurse, and she was talking about that there's been legislation in Congress requiring minimum staffing levels for nursing. And it got me back to thinking to when I hurt my back. Before I hurt my back, after working 120 hours that week at one nursing home, I had hurt my knee and I had to take 6 months off the floor. So I went to work with the union that I was with, and they at that time was writing and working and legislating for a minimum staffing bill. And I went and looked back into my, notes of, what Aeson has done. And I was like, that was in 2004. 2004, more than 18 years ago, the Congress had this bill. Dust it the hell off. Stop pissing it off, Manchin.
Well, and then you have to start questioning, though, how are they going to abuse this? Because you know that on one side of this coin, you're going to create minimum staffing levels. You know they're going to try to use the other side of it to require other things. And how, and will that include caps on wages? Will that include, like the case we saw recently where they were legally or trying to legally prevent employees from leaving a hospital because it would have caused short staffing?
Right.
Like they were trying to bind these people to their job until such time as the hospital deemed it appropriate to replace them.
Right. Well, see, that's still in effect. That is still a problem. Right now, it is 10:50. In many hospitals and nursing homes, in 10 minutes, shift change will occur. This is what happens, guys, for those that don't know. Let's say evening shift has 6 people, 6 nurses on staff. Now, at midnight, at 11 p.m., nobody shows up. If the midnight staff is 4 people, then 4 people from evening shift must continue working on until day shift comes in. And if they are short, they still have to keep working, taking care of patients until day shift has enough workers.
Yeah, it's a scary concept. On one side of it, ensuring care of patients is important.
Right.
Like, no one argues that. No, like, not one nurse, I think, has ever argued.
Right.
The fact that there are hospitals and medical providers that the idea of this is in natural disaster. like catastrophic events, war, that you would be implementing this.
Right.
And for many medical facilities, there's almost an exploitation of it with reduced staffing inadvertently causing a shortage of staff pool that creates this situation inevitably. And especially in the middle of an event like this, like our current, like high situation we've been in for 2 years, that we have, another factor causing shortage of staff.
Right.
That you have a segment of staff that's out sick, that cannot come in, and you were already at a bare bones skeleton crew to start with, and then you're just continuously working nurses to the point that they want to get sick. Like, I'm sure that as horrible as that sounds, there are a few that wish they would just get sick for the vacation.
Well,
because
not only
battling
that,
this,
others, but we have to go back from current events in nursing. When they were working nurses, it was standard 16-hour day shift. When they were burning nurses out as fast as they could for as lowest pay as they could, and then they write them up and go after their license, and so they leave and they go to the next hospital, and they work for 5 years at that hospital, and then suddenly, from excellent care and excellent reviews, they go to crappy reviews and crappy shit. And it's because at that 5-year mark, they would become tenured. This is how they get nurses to come in. Is you work for us for 5 years, we'll tender you, you'll have all these extra benefits.
Like
4 years and 3 days in, that nurse is gone.
Yeah. And a lot of companies have done that.
Yeah.
That if there's any kind of promise of seniority, regardless of whatever that comes with, if it's just kind of a loose, informal thing, or even if it is a more structured, like tenure, any kind of contractual situation, especially. Companies will definitely try to idiotically, and I have to say idiotically,
right?
Pound wise, or penny wise, pound foolish.
Right.
Look to avoid the cost,
right,
of having a long-term employee, while not recognizing the extreme cost of churning and burning employees that are good at their jobs,
right?
That have every expectation and should become a long-term employee,
right?
So it does become a situation, and we see this with reviews. We see this with, like, there's a lot of insidious ways that companies do this.
Right. Well, it's like I just pulled up an employer. I won't release their name. They're offering a $5,000 sign-on bonus and $300 a month student loan repayment. Yeah. Well,
and then we also have to look at, the human problem of this. These aren't just employees. They're not a widget.
Right.
Like, you don't get a box of employees and put them on the shelf and use one for 4 years and 3 days and then throw it out.
Right.
Like, that's a human.
Right.
And to sit there and do your job, do it well, do all the things you're supposed to do, and go above and beyond even, like, ideally, and with this one dangling carrot that you're going to have a long-term career here.
Right.
But also to just go through the mental stress, anguish, and frustration of being told you're bad at this, you're bad at that, you can't do this right, you can't do that right, to force you out. The psychological torture that you're doing to a human being. And for what?
Right.
That's where mentally I have issues.
To cut the money, to save the money. You get workers in for like, and I'm going to give a bad example.
Mm-hmm.
You know, going wage for nurses when I was in nursing was $15 an hour. But if you worked for a company for 2 years, they would then pay for your next level of training.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, that's how you can go from a CNA to an LPN to an RN, is that 2 year gap. And if you can get through that company and work through that company, you keep doing it. But at the same time that's going on, you have the companies and the legislators all going in and lobbying to get more restrictive laws. If back to our situation that's now happening in 3 minutes, if that nurse has been there 16 hours, they have to give her a 2 hour break,
Mm-hmm.
2 hours, because they don't have enough staffing, and she then has to work day shift. So you now have a nurse on the floor for more than 24 hours in direct patient care. She isn't pushing papers. She's pushing meds. She's doing wound care. She's lifting and bathing. You know, she's putting them to bed, all this. And it's still legal. It is still legal.
Well, and moreover, the quality of patient care diminishes rapidly. Because, and again, how are you going to not get written up?
Right. Well, you don't. And not
Like,
only do
it's
you
a
not
breeding
get written
ground.
up, not only do you not get written up, but if she would say, I've been on the floor for 16 hours, I am no longer safe to do care, I am going down to room B and go to sleep for at least 6, and then I will come back up, that hospital administrator can report her to the nurses board, and they pull her license. We have a mutual nursing friend, and the last blizzard that came through, the hospital shut down a ward and put their nurses up, started bunking their nurses there for the weekend.
Yeah, because of the snowstorm and fears that employees would not be able to get in.
Yeah.
And to some degree, I have some appreciation for the situation. I do. And it is a legitimate concern when you're in direct patient care, and this is a hospital. You have, like, this isn't this isn't elective surgeries. This isn't, stuff you can reschedule. The person in ICU doesn't just go home for a couple of days because there's a little bit of snow.
No.
Like, there's no wait for this. Right. And granted, in that situation, it may all be for naught. Like, the snowstorm's over, and so is her life. For this patient, unfortunate timing here. But you can't just send everyone home like it's a winter break.
Right.
Those patients are there, and more patients will continue to come in, especially in the midst of a snowstorm, because accidents start running high, people slip and fall, people wreck their cars. It's a horrible time. You need that staff there, and I understand that. And I do, to some degree, appreciate the opportunity to keep staff on site to prevent the problems that are going to occur with other staff, that it does effectively begin to balance the load.
Right. But it doesn't fully balance the load, because they're only giving them 2 hours between 16 hours. Ridiculous. Puts patients in danger. And the hospitals have ran nurses out of the business. They have ran them out of nursing. People are leaving the bed daily because they cannot do it. Nurses are now being treated for PTSD that therapists are saying they haven't seen since World War II levels of PTSD in a field.
Well, and it's not just nursing.
Yeah.
From what I've seen, there's a massive, across all sectors of employment, increase in diagnosis of PTSD. Now, one could sit here and say that it's become the new ADHD, that we're just diagnosing everyone with PTSD. Or we could sit back and look at employment over the last several decades and question, because I think most of us are feeling it, whether or not the employment situation has so drastically changed that it is working in a war-torn environment.
Right.
They're not dropping bombs, they're dropping layoff notices. They're not dropping, throwing hand grenades. They're throwing, pink slips.
Right.
They're not, sitting here firing bullets at you unless you count every single review, write-up, and, crazy ass plan for HR to avoid making you a long-term employee, to prevent you, to help the company not give you a raise, to help the company find and keep always a reason to terminate you immediately for cause. That sounds like war. Yeah. When you think about it, when you literally sit there and think about it, if you have to go in every day to a place that you can't trust that the information you're being given is true, like you're having your performance evaluated not based on your performance, but based on what's best for the company in any given situation. Like you're not being told you're doing a bad job because you're doing a bad job per se. You're being told you're doing a bad job because it benefits this company to tell you that.
Right.
When you're not going in and you don't know, am I going to get fired today? Am I going to get laid off today if I take a vacation day? If I use that PTO, am I going to get fired for it? Am I going to get to use it at all?
Am I going to be able to go to work and come home in 8, 10, 12, 48, 72 hours? And this is a sunny, dry day. This isn't,
Then you go to the next level and then you get home. And are you going to be able to afford rent off of what you make? Are you going to be able to put food on the table, pay the car note, and, do all these things? I'm sorry, that sounds like war.
Right.
Does it not sound like war to someone? Like, these are literally, you can extrapolate from this, or kind of the way I'm extrapolating it, is look at what someone in a war-torn country goes through.
Right.
They have no clue what's happening next.
Scarier, guys. So I remember reading this story earlier this week. So I go to search it. Nurse found dead, because this is a new thing. Nurses are being found dead. And they're not being found dead because of drug use. They're being found dead because of suicide. So, we may have the National Guards, luckily in West Virginia, in our facilities, cleaning and washing. We have freaking trained medics in Army, in every branch of the things. Why are they not on the floors doing patient care? I think that's a waste of it.
Well, but until what point will that cover the gap? As in how, like, we're sitting here with a problem in which we have a shortage of nursing. Yeah, we can fill that with National Guard. We can fill that with military personnel. We can fill that, much like we're seeing in West Virginia with teaching. Yeah. Like, they have lowered you want to talk about a bar you can step over, the requirements to be a teacher right now, at least substitute, in West Virginia are basically as low as they have ever been. Or will ever be.
And this isn't been low as they've ever.
Well, it was low,
because a substitute teacher or a private teacher in the state of in Fayette County, you can teach 4 years below your degree. I have a master's degree, so I can teach all the way to high school. When I was working on my master's, when I was in college, I could teach primary and secondary education.
Well, as I understand it now, West Virginia has dropped to the point of anyone with a high school diploma.
Wow.
So that's where the bar is. Like, you could literally be sitting, and I would hope schools wouldn't do this, but I think the situation is so bad that they're not really, high. We're throwing cups of water at a raging inferno of a problem. You could literally have last year's graduate teaching this year's seniors. That's where we are. That's where we are. And because we talk about substitutes, and it's easy to think that, okay, we're only going to be talking about a few days while a teacher's out, whatever. No, this shortage has gotten to the point that substitutes are now teaching for a full academic year. There is a shortage.
Right.
To the point, there isn't a teacher for this class.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to continue to offer the class because we have to.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to plug a sub into it.
Right.
And they are going to teach from the first day of school to the last day of school, and they may be back next year.
Yeah.
As long as they don't do anything too stupid.
Mm-hmm.
That's frightening.
Yeah.
I've seen some of the ads over the years, and I thought when it got down to if you have a 4-year degree in anything, we don't care. I thought that was kind of bad. And I was like, but that's still at least, but now it's to the point that really?
Yeah. What's scary is after 5 years in I believe it's 5 or 7 years in teaching, you're tenured. So by the time we get back to the new normal, we could have teachers tenured that never went to school. Depending.
Now, if they stay a sub, that can be a little wonky because I think you have to technically be hired full time before that clock starts.
Right.
And it's a weird thing. You can be a full year sub. You can be a full year sub for multiple years. You can work every single day.
Right.
And it's a totally different situation for you.
Right.
Now,
what aggravates me? Well, you go with your concern. I'll go with my aggravation. You go with your concern first.
What concerns me is if you're talking about someone who's 19 years old, I think we can all agree that, yes, they're technically an adult on paper. And they have a high school diploma. We've noticed over time, as a society in a whole, that 19 to 25 is still a growth period. Mentally, intellectually, you are still a young adult. Meanwhile, we have an educational system, full of, and especially in that high school example, of people that are effectively your peers. And we have written laws, we have created rules, we have created a code of professional conduct for teachers based on the ideas that any kind of relationship would be inappropriate. Most of which is built around the idea that there's going to be a significant enough intellectual gap between the people in the classroom learning and the people at the front of the classroom teaching that there should not be any form of a relationship.
Well, we've seen this play out. Because if you remember the former Mississippi teacher charged with sexual relations with a student, those charges have been dropped after she married the student. Bailing Turner, who broke the airwaves in the news in Mississippi, who was teaching English in Mississippi in 2019 at 23, was charged with that same year with having sexual relations with her male student. Well, she married the male student, so the charges had to be dropped because he can't testify against her.
That is not how I would have thought that would have played out, because technically marrying a witness in most states doesn't preclude testifying about a criminal act prior to the marriage. That effectively they see it for what it is. Or could be that you married as a defense. Can't testify, we were married, can't testify against spouse. Well, that doesn't always work out. Your mileage may significantly vary.
Now, granted, the student was 17, she was 23. There's not a big scandal in this. However, at 26, Turner and the former student have married, meaning he can't testify against her, is what the DA is saying there.
And then you almost have to start to question how inappropriate is that relationship, like if you pulled that completely out of the classroom,
Mm-hmm.
completely out of the classroom,
Mm-hmm.
how, like, I think it's still a little wrong,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not what you imagine in that whole, like, hot for teacher, like, inappropriate
Mm-hmm.
relationship dynamic where it's like 35-year-old teacher,
Mm-hmm.
17-year-old student, where everyone can go, oh my God,
Right.
no, that's wrong.
Right.
Like, that's
but there is a
no.
large spectrum of teachers that have married students.
Mhm.
Past
There are.
teachers. Yeah, there is. There is a case currently, I believe it is in California, that's a harassment suit over the gym teacher who married a student and has made it clear what occurred when that student was a student but wasn't charged. Yeah. All right, guys, we're running over like normal, so let's move on to our favorite segment. And then there's a story I want to cover. I've been trying to cover the story for 3 shows. I'm covering it.
Okay.
But let's go on to our favorite segment. Are you the asshole?
Yes. Am I the asshole demanding my boyfriend to pay me for a replacement phone after he threw out my old one? Hello. I, female 32, met my boyfriend, male 37, about 9 months ago. He has 2 kids, 4 and 6, both boys, from his previous relationship. His kids are adorable and I love spending time with them. However, we do not live together yet. So last week he had a work trip and asked if he could bring the kids to stay with me, and I approved with zero hesitation. The boys came over and we took the entire day doing fun outdoor activities. We got home in the evening and I decided to post one video I took of the kids playing with the snow. I posted it and got a number of likes. I tagged my boyfriend as a surprise to let him know how much fun the kids had. But when he got back, he was furious with me for posting a video of the kids without permission. He pitched a fit and went on about how I overstepped, invaded his and the kids' privacy, used them for internet likes, and betrayed the sense of security he thought I had for the kids. I was flabbergasted by his reaction. I said, "What's the big deal?" And he literally started shouting at me and berating me, insinuating I should never have done that. He demanded I delete the video, wipe it along with any other videos and pics I took of his kids off my phone completely. I was going to do what he asked, but I found that he took my phone and threw it away. He only gave back my SIM card. I lost it asking why he did it, and he said that I created this situation and made him do this. I called him unbelievable and demanded he pay me for a replacement phone as soon as possible, but he said he wasn't responsible for my mistakes. I argued that he massively overreacted and he should have let me know he didn't want the kids to be on camera, and he just kept going on about how I violated his and his kids' trust and privacy, and how it's never an overreaction when he's trying to keep their privacy intact. I kept demanding for a new phone and he's refusing. So, am I the asshole? I do feel like I should have spoken to him, but I think I have the right to not want my phone thrown out over a small mistake. Like, I'll let you start.
First,
I'm curious. I'm curious where you're at on this one.
no, I don't think that she's the asshole, first off. Second off, not only does he owe her for a replacement phone, I also think he owes her. She needs to be seeing this as a very large red flag of abuse. You made me do it is not a legal defense. You made me do it as a heckling of the statements abusers use.
Mm-hmm. I can say I'm pretty much on board. I can understand a parent making a choice that they don't want their kids posted online. that you know, I can get that. I don't think that's an unreasonable idea for parents to have. You know, I think that's definitely a choice a parent can have. I think you've got to be very clear if you're going to leave those kids in the custody of another human that is not you, that is not the baby mama, that is not, you know, someone who already, you know, co-parents with you, that this is what you have decided. And then you have a reasonable expectation they will do that. And you would have every right to be upset about it.
Right.
And go, look, take it down and don't ever do that again.
Right.
And more than likely, you're not going to spend time alone with these kids again.
Right.
That's a reaction. That's a legit reaction.
That's a legit reaction.
And again, I can understand being mad. This shot was so far past that.
Oh, yeah.
Like, this is rage. This is uncontrolled rage. And then this is literally turning the situation from one that, you know, making a reasonable request and having someone follow through on it. And, you know, leaving an opportunity to rebuild trust, regain trust, or, you know, hey, sorry, you just can't be in my life anymore because you don't respect us. That's one component. But then shooting so far past that it's like you're destroying property, you are refusing to be responsible for the property you destroyed, you are just so far out there that you're looking for fear and intimidation. That not only will this person never do this again, there's not a whole lot they're gonna do if they stick with you. Yeah, no, that's just...
And the other part here, and the other thought here on me, is he not only owes her for her phone, but he owes her for, let's say, 48 hours, you know, a day. So that's 24 hours. 48 hours of professional nannying, if that is what he expected. And furthermore, it kind of wouldn't have been known. And, you know, that the kids aren't allowed on social media. I make it very clear to figure out what to post, what not to post. I'm very careful about who I want to post what. And I make it clear to our friends, like, no, yes, we are at the state fair. No, you can't post pictures of me at the state fair today. You can post those tomorrow. Or
at least
me in
after the event. After we're down the road. And even if someone breaks that, even if someone doesn't know that and messes that up, forgets, whatever, you know, your response is going to be probably twofold. One, could you please take that down? You know, this is what I request. That, you know, I'm fine with having them posted later. I've just been in situations where this could cause me harm. So I don't do that. Will you please take that down? And then if they don't, or if there's no opportunity to do that, like we don't know till later, that's someone that, one, you're going to be very clear the next time you ask and make sure they really, really understand. And then you start making the choice of, okay, you're not respecting my boundaries. So I just can't be around you. And well, that's my right, is to go, look, if you're going to be there.
The thing here, and I do this all the time with people, is he can remove the tag. If he doesn't want it on his profile, he can remove the tag. Her little 200 friends can go ape shit over it. They don't know who the kids are. There's no joint connection there.
Well, and even if it's just about having the kids up, regardless of if they're nameless kids, again, I could understand reasonably, that, hi, take it down. They're children. They don't, you know, they didn't choose to be uploaded. They don't understand the consequences of being videoed and having that video online. And granted, this seems innocuous, but there are legitimate parental concerns there.
Very much
so. And I get that. I'm totally there with that.
Right.
But at the same time, there's so many better ways to handle this than brute force and intimidation that literally does raise the red flag of this is an abuser. You think throwing away the phone today, as Brenda put it, throw the phone today, throw her into something soon with that kind of reaction.
Exactly.
Like, it's not a big logical leap.
Right.
Not at that level of displayed anger.
No, it's not. And she was wrong with. Brenda also says she was wrong with not checking with him about the kids. Many parents are crazy picky, but he is crazy asshole. He was wrong on so many levels, and she needs to rethink him.
Although Sarah brings up a good point. Do you think it was an outlet for underlying issues within the relationship?
I think it's a good point for him trying to assert control of the relationship. First of all, to ask the girlfriend to watch your kids. They don't say how long they've been dating, but if they're not living together,
it's kind of a big step.
That's a big step. That's a big step. That's a very big step of, I don't know. I don't let my boyfriends watch my dogs till about 2 years in. Were you longer? How long was it until you were left with the kids?
It was before my surgery. It was before my surgery.
You were living here.
Yeah, I was living here, but it was before my surgery.
So that's 2 years in.
Roughly.
Yeah.
Like, if that.
If that. Okay. You can, as a parent, I would be even more, protective.
Well, granted, situations come up and sometimes things just happen.
Right.
This kind of sounds like where this began is I don't think she was his first choice necessarily to watch the kids. It sounds like this just all kind of came together. And I don't want to add to this situation and say he took advantage, but he at least recognized that she would be potentially willing. And she was. And it wasn't an issue.
Right.
Or shouldn't have been.
Right.
But I do think that, I just really struggle with this one. Like, it's not really that weird. Like, it's not like she took video of, like, naked bath time.
Right.
And it's, like, marginally, bubble bath hidden nudity.
Right.
And is posting that all over the internet and, like, tagged him and blah, 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 blah.
Right.
I can see being like, look, we don't do that. That's not what I want to have happen. Like, I think this so blew out of control, like, within his brain, that it's like, no. Pump the brakes. Pump the brakes.
Right.
Like, try handling this like an intelligent human being who's encountered a situation in which your, current significant other has done something that you don't agree with.
Right.
That maybe you didn't have time to fully explain.
Right.
Maybe you think she should have just known, but didn't.
Right.
Like, you haven't been dating that long, obviously. But if it's... But then there's the question of, is this, like, the, like, final straw?
Right.
I think that's a valid point. That it could be that, like, this was like one more thing with her that she's not linking for whatever reason, either because it all makes her look bad, like maybe she's taking the kids, to get ice cream or whatever, and just like it's gone off the rails before, but this is the one. Well, it's again, like, I can't do this.
Yeah, I'm gonna say this. He's the asshole. He's also a lot of red flags there. Honey, go buy you a new phone, get you a new man, because this one's defective.
Yeah. Well, and Sarah's saying she's the one painting the narrative. We don't know his side. I'm just going by if this were me and this were the last straw, I ain't staying there that night for the other half that I just screamed, yelled at, threw a fit about.
Right.
To be able to find out I threw away their phone and then have a secondary argument with. Like, if that's my last straw, that's called, there's, a Howard Johnson Motel 6 something, or that either she can be at or I can.
Right.
So there's just no...
Right. But no, he's an asshole. You do not destroy other people's property. All right. So we're starting to see some traction and some action on a case that's just heartbreaking. Y'all guys remember the Bumble date and how Bumble date led to death, and nobody informed the family.
What?
Smithfield's 23 was found unresponsive on December 12th in her Bridgeport apartment by a man she had met on Bumble, who called the police to report that he had awakened to find her unresponsive with a nosebleed. The family accused the police department of being racially insensitive, saying that they weren't contacted by the officers about her death, but by the building landlord. The family attorney said that they found a note on her door. And then when questioned about the Bumble dude, oh, he was a nice man.
What?
Yeah, they didn't hold him for investigation or anything else.
He was a nice person.
Yeah. We didn't hold him. They didn't collect evidence or nothing. Last week, the Connecticut Officer Medical Chief Examiner ruled Smithfield's death was an accident resulting from acute intoxication due to a combination of effects of fentanyl, formosamine, hydrogen oxide, and alcohol. Following the announcement, the Bridgeport Police Department announced a criminal investigation into her death, assisted with the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration. Ron, 33, was found dead at Bridgeport's residence the same day as Smithfield, and her family also said police never notified them of her death, and that the city police had not even taken her case seriously. Her cause and manner of death is still pending.
Excuse me. I just don't how do you not know? Okay, I understand situations in which media gets out that identifies, the deceased in the situation, whatever the situation is, whether it's criminal or non-criminal, accidental, whatever. I understand the situation in which media gets a hold of it, and that's how family finds out.
Right.
But to just because, for whatever reason,
right,
the speed at which law enforcement can reach the family,
right,
is slower than how fast you can break into a newscast with a reporter reporting an event. Right. I get that part. I don't understand how, though, you end up with family that has to find out with a note on a door that no one was attempting to contact at all. Just I don't do that. Right.
The next, if you're looking for Smithfield, call this number.
I really struggle with that. I would need more information to figure out how that happens.
Anybody of these, because there's two cases here.
Right.
Both of them look to have been the same overdose. They're not sure because the other one they're having to still investigate. Neither case did the police officers or detectives inform the family of the death.
That's where I'm just lost, is why would you not even try?
Right.
Obviously the landlord had the ability to contact someone.
Right.
So it should have been a fairly straightforward. Officer says, "Hi, do you have any contact information for this person's relatives.
Right.
Okay, thank you so much. We'll give them a call.
Right.
Like, I can understand, like, there not being a notice of someone that you can't identify.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't sound like that's a problem here.
No, because it's in their apartments.
You know, it's like you're right there.
Right.
Like you didn't check for a phone. You didn't go through last contacts. You didn't.
They didn't even collect evidence.
Like,
The
all
family
right,
had to collect evidence.
load her up and you know, let the nice guy go, and y'all have a great day.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, you know, we're gonna go get breakfast now.
Yeah.
Like, I can't figure out. Like, part of me is horrified by the idea of it. Part of me seriously wants to know, how does that conversation go?
Well, you know,
how does that, like, you're in this situation as an officer.
Mm-hmm.
You've been called into this situation. Mm-hmm. There's a dead body that is being rolled out.
Mm-hmm. And
you're just like, okay, well, thanks, have a great day.
Right. The family had to literally go to the point of hiring a lawyer to harass the police department, the prosecutor's office, and the mayor to even get charges filed in the first one to do an investigation. The family walked into an apartment where they just basically, the police showed up, they picked the body up, they sent the body to the coroner's, locked the door, went on with their day.
Effectively, no episode of, like, Law and Order SVU, Law and Order, like, nothing you have ever seen. Mm-mm. Just rolled in, okay, dead people.
Yeah, not anything that I have ever seen in real life. Ever.
Yeah.
You know, because I've been around law enforcement. We've dealt with law enforcement. Lord God knows I've dealt with law enforcement. No, there's at least normally an investigation, some questioning going on. Not, he seems like an honest and nice man.
53-year-olds don't just typically drop dead. Like, there's reasons, but in general, it's not grandma died peacefully in her sleep. Mm-hmm. It's not, you know, she had, you know, a terminal condition and there was hospice.
Mm-hmm.
Because let me tell you, that was one of my first concerns when hospice was being called in.
Mm-hmm.
And I had, well, it wasn't my first concern really, but it was one that was already in the back of my head.
Mm-hmm.
Was because when you're taking care of someone who is elderly, you know there's going to come a point in which they're not alive anymore.
Right.
Like, this is reality. You know, at some point, I'm going to wake up, she's not.
Right.
And, like, so one of my first questions is, what do I do when she passes? Mm-hmm. Because I had been walking around with that weight, I guess one could say, for a really long time.
Right.
Because it's not like it's unimaginable that the 92-year-old, the 96-year-old, the 97-year-old dropped dead.
Right.
Like, I mean, she was an old lady with a lot of health issues. They do that.
Right.
Like, that's what they do.
Right.
You know, there's nothing suspicious here.
Right.
I honestly, and I've been really worried about how to ask that question.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because no one ever tells you what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do I call 911? It's not really an emergency.
No, well,
it's not, you know.
Normally you have to, and I guess I was blessed with that because I've got the in-home training of, he's dead. Call the funeral home. They'll come pick him up. But I'm sorry. I never thought to tell you that.
Well, no. Basically by the point that, like, we were talking about the hospice thing, like, that was one of my first questions when, like, they sent over the hospice nurse, and I'm talking to the hospice nurse. I'm asking that question. Because it finally seems like the first appropriate time. I'm talking back 2010. I'm already realizing that there's a possibility that any point, like I could get here today, go to bed tonight, and she doesn't wake up tomorrow. And every day after. That's always a, moment. And literally I would sit there in the morning sometimes, and if she just like overslept, I would sit there and have that realization that this could be today. And I don't know what I'm supposed to do, what's appropriate to do. It's not an emergency. If she died in her sleep, I hope it was peaceful.
Right.
Like, no one strangled her. There's not a big investigation as to why the 90-some-year-old woman died.
Right.
She's got a list of doctors that can fill that one out for you.
Right.
I mean, not to make light of it, but seriously.
Right.
It's not like, oh my God, what could have happened?
Right.
She's old. Her body gave out.
Right. Now,
it's pretty...
what was heartbreaking to me, and what it's looking like, is they basically police profiled these two ladies who are African American, and the mother's statement just dry. It's like, how can a mother go through this? The biggest misconception is that my daughter was on drugs. She said she was not on drugs. Lauren worked every day. She was on a plant-based diet. She went to college. She owned her own business in her home. There were no drugs around. She was not on drugs at all. She had her whole life ahead of her.
Well, and it shouldn't matter.
Right.
That's fundamental. Like, even if the police step in and they're looking at someone and it's like, well, I can obviously tell this is what caused her this person's death. And yes, it's, potentially more, and I'm throwing air quotes for anyone just listening. I'm throwing air quotes on this one that, well, like she brought it on herself or whatever. Doesn't matter. This is a person.
Right.
They were brought into this world by two other people.
Right. And
there was
then
potentially
Brenda Lee
family.
Rawson's family heard from a neighbor that their sister had died, but they couldn't find her body. They had to do their own investigation. And this is the one I was talking about, where the family had to collect their own evidence. They had to maintain their own evidence. They had, and see, now this, even criminal charges at this point, because there is no chain of custody. How do you say victim's father collected sheets from bed covered in blood, sealed them in a bag, was collected into evidence on the 23rd? A defense attorney is going to walk his ass all over that one.
Yeah, how do you know you didn't contaminate it? Did you handle it according to police procedure? Did it follow all the rules of evidence? And fundamentally, either one of two things happens, and this is a horrible, unfortunate, accidental death.
Right.
Legitimately, that's what this is. Or this is like the most horribly mishandled murder investigation of all murder investigations.
Right.
In a situation where from the beginning you don't know.
Right.
Just because you find a dead body that, and more importantly, just because, like, here's the thing, hindsight can build a lot of things. How do you walk in and just know it's not a murder investigation?
Right.
You have a dead 53-year-old, for instance, in this case, a dead 53-year-old. 53-year-olds with, like, like, is there a gunshot?
Right.
Is there a stabbing? How do you just look and be like, yeah, this is probably just, natural causes? Or, an accidental overdose or whatever. Like, that's not your determination to make. That's a medical examiner. That is, someone who is not you to do a full autopsy and make a determination of the cause of death.
Mm-hmm.
If you've been called into this situation, you should be suspicious.
Right.
Like anyone should. Now, there's plenty of people that it's a totally natural death.
Mm-hmm.
People have aneurysms, people have strokes, people
Right.
have all kinds of health conditions that can kill them at
Right.
53.
Mm-hmm.
It's not impossible.
Right.
But don't.
What's the possibility? What's the likelihood?
Mhm.
Bridgeport, Pennsylvania is not a big town.
Mhm.
And yes, this police department is on record. They've had federal charges. One of their last police chief was served a year and a day in jail over some other cases of racism and profiling and other things.
Mhm.
What is the likelihood of 2 women of color passing away on the same day and being found on the same day with the same drug mixture in their system?
Also unlikely. But but then there's this more important part is racial profiling isn't even what this is.
Mm-hmm.
This is you saw someone's race and didn't give a shit.
Right.
All right, they're dead, whatever. Doesn't matter. To you, this was not a human life. You found a dog on the side of the road.
Mm-hmm.
And, oh well.
Right.
You registered nothing about this being a human life.
Right. Now, the DOJ, the NAACP is asked the DOJ to hold an investigation into both these cases and to possibly take over these cases because they're not getting any out. Like, they're not getting traction here. They just now got those 2 detectives suspended. Not fired. Suspended.
Yeah. Well, and the harsh reality of the Department of Justice stepping in at any point of this, whether it's investigation into them or investigation into the deaths, it's already so screwed. The best the family can hope for is to know what happened and maybe prevent this from happening to other families. But I don't think you're going to see if there is a responsible person, whether it's from, spiking someone's drink at a club, forcibly injecting them, causing a murder, like whatever. This case is so tainted.
Right.
I just don't see how you could really do that unless they walked into the police station, not that one, wrote out a very intelligent, compelling confession on videotape by hand, and had the world's dumbest defense attorney just roll over as they plead guilty.
Right.
Like, I don't know how you could, take this situation and actually run a prosecution. Like, I'm not saying it's impossible. Right. I'm sure there's someone that could. I just don't know how.
Right.
Like, so I'm not like
I'm going to give a few tips here for those that are doing the online dating. If it's the first date, you don't know this person. Go out of your house, go have a date in a public spot. If you decide to go back to one another's place, whoever's place it's at is the one that gets the first drink of whatever the alcohol is. You pour your own drink. There's none of this, well, let me pour your drink. No, I'll pour my own. If you're going to go there, you don't get intoxicated. You make sure that you're drinking the same thing. This is dangerous. This is a pattern going across the United States. This is back reflection of the 1980s date rape drugs. Now they're more deadly.
Well, there is that. And that's also making the assumption this wasn't either something they took by intent. It maybe got told it was something else entirely.
Right.
I mean, it's not crazy to think at 53 that maybe someone offers you, some MDMA. And you're like, well, you only live once. Right. Like, You know, like it could even be a friend thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like totally unrelated to the guy that she went out on a date with.
Right.
At all.
Mm-hmm.
At all. This could literally be the most innocent human being that, you know, goes out for a fun night on a first date. They make a decent connection with each other. Everything is going well, fine, great, and wonderful. And then you wake up next to a corpse.
Right.
And suddenly it's all tragically horrible. And you are the most unlucky lightning strike victim ever to exist, especially since, as I'm reading it, or as I understand the cases, like they seem to be totally disconnected from each other.
Right.
So, I mean, there's an arguable, unless it's like the Tylenol case.
Well, no, there's a large arguable debate here because the chemical blood results are basically the same, so that causes me to question it. The other side of this is we need to go back into some club training.
Yeah.
Okay, here's some club training for those that do not know what it is. If you go to a club, you set your drink down and you turn away from it, even to have a conversation, that drink is done. You don't accept a drink unless it comes from a bartender to your hands. And it stays in your hands. I don't care if it's in a bottle, it's a glass, whatever. It doesn't matter. You stop drinking that drink and set it down. I'm not saying don't get trashed. I'm not saying don't have a good time. Don't have an awesome hookup, but do it safely. These are things that are going on across this country that's a little weird. We've got people passing away from exactly the same drug compilations. So that tells me one or two things. Either the blood is contaminated, i.e. they're using one blood for two people.
Or something about the way they collected it and processed it. Crossed.
Or they went to the same club and got part of the same bad drink.
Or got handed it, or have the same friend in common.
Right.
They said, here, try this. It's amazing. You know, whatever. Like, there's a lot of things that could happen there.
Right.
And within this, like, I also feel like there's almost a thing of one has to point out that a lot of this is about being paranoid for good reason.
Right.
It's not that everyone that you will encounter in a space is going to do this to you. It's not that every single time is a battlefield of disaster. It's just, sometimes it's just too easy.
Right. And it doesn't matter where it's at.
Yeah.
Story and controversy. I had a show in, I was in Greensboro. We had a show in Salem. We went up, done the show, and of course, the whole night, Aeson's drinking. Drink setting on my dressing table. I'm talking. I'm, emceeing. I'm performing. An hour and a half after that show, I don't remember what happened until I woke up in the hospital. Alcohol poisoning and GSB. You've done too much GSB.
I didn't do that.
I don't do that. That's not my drug of choice, honey. Well, your blood results show that you had too much GSB in your system. And I'm like, how did this happen? I didn't take drinks from the audience because it's not my club. So my bartenders don't know what I want. Okay. Oh. I had gotten used to having my own dressing room and not leaving my drink on the dressing table. Normal thing. Happened every night. Matter of fact, normally when I walked in that night, depending on the bartender, because different bartenders I enjoyed the drinks, but normally there was drinks sitting on the dressing room table waiting for me. It was either a White Russian if Sonny was working, or it was Black Velvet and Coke if Don was working. I knew who it was working by what drink was waiting for me. This night we were visiting. It was a pageant show. So I knew, and it's
basically a situation of not my bar, not my people, not my bartender, not my none of this was my normal.
Right. So this happens, guys. This happens today. This is not a 1970s thing. This is not a 1980s and 90s thing. This is happening, guys. These are old tricks into new shows.
Well, and then without digging too much into the scenario or of what happened, but and the best thing that occurred there was, intense intoxication that landed you in the hospital. Like, I'm assuming that you were safe up to the point that you collapsed and then ended up at the hospital.
Right.
Or I'm assuming that's the assumption you're making, that, like,
right.
You don't know what happened, but,
right.
You didn't find out otherwise from someone else later. It didn't pop up, in a video. Or a Polaroid or a whatever, or gossip around the club circuit is that so-and-so did such and such.
Yeah. Didn't know that because, it's kind of funny. My two careers, I do my events now the same way I've done my events when I was in the club days. We get there. I have a handler. My handler takes care of me. I don't even like taking drinks unless Joe brings them. Like, here's my water. No thing. I don't.
Like, you generally don't. Like, you have to really know someone.
Yeah.
To be like, here's a bottle of water. Here's a this, here's a that. Like, no, otherwise you're just like, no.
No.
Like, if I want that, Joe can go get that.
Right.
Like, literally, if he, like, I feel like I'm setting myself up for a future of, like, whatever. But honestly, if he's collapsed at an event and, like, this is drug-based and it was something he drank or ate at an event, there's not, like, unless he is, for whatever insane reason, completely departed from his normal, I'm going to jail. I could be innocent as the day is long. They're putting my butt in jail. Because
you don't
this
need
is
to worry about jail. Oh, no. Jail is your nice side.
Yeah,
You're dealing with Miranda Priestley, who's going to dress you down and go, what the fuck are you doing? I'm working.
No, I mean, in terms of, like, if some horror, like, if this because, like, if you go to an event and, like, Jessica Fletcher shows up, and you're dead, literally everyone knows, like, the only person that brings you food or drink at an event is me or your handler, whoever that may be. Like, we're going to end up in jail. If, like, it was, like, you obviously drank this at this event and that is what occurred.
Right.
Because everyone's going to tell him the same thing. The only person that handed him anything all night
was his handler.
Was that guy.
Right. And see here, and I've left companies before because they wanted to give me a different handler. I'm like, no, I provide my own handler.
Well, yeah. Because there is that issue of, like, okay, I don't know this person. How much can I trust this person? Like, again, maybe it's paranoid. But it's paranoid for a reason. Like, and especially when you've been through situations, like, we all end up with those in life, in which other people are going to fundamentally get punished forever because some bastard done did us wrong.
Right.
And created a reason why we don't do that.
Right.
Like, we don't go there. We don't drive that speed limit. Or, like, we drive that speed limit. We don't speed. We don't do this. Like,
right.
We end up with a ton of those in life. And then, it may sound kind of silly or crazy or whatever, but people do bad shit. Like, not everyone's decent.
Right. Well, there's multiple cases. I'm sorry, Southern Queens, I'll talk about you. You can come for me if you want. I'll check you too. They are horrible. Like, if we went below, like, if in the old days of performing, if we went to Georgia, if we went to Florida, if we went to New Orleans, our cases were locked. Our makeup was put up and locked again. And we hired someone just to stand there at our dressing center because they'll put glass in your makeup. Yeah. That's also where the hairspray dress came from.
All right, I'm going to tell this one, and you may hurt me after the show.
That's fine.
Brenda brought us a cheesecake to one of his classes.
Mm-hmm.
This was at a point in which I don't go to his classes. I sit out in the vehicle. I don't know any of his students all that well.
Mm-hmm.
Like visually, I know they are his students. I don't know his students all that well. Like we talk a little, but not enough for me to honestly know a whole lot about names.
Mm-hmm.
There was a moment when she actually, because she had promised this.
Uh-huh.
And don't get me wrong, we loved her from the show. But she had promised this, showed up with it, and I'm just like looking at him after Brenda left, and Brenda, don't hate me. But I said, are we going to actually eat this? Or do we kindly accept this and throw it out?
No, we
do
ate
you
it.
Trust her?
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah. I'm like, oh, good, because it looks great. Listen, I was about ready to risk it. I really was. Like, I was about like, I may die and regret this, but it was good.
But no, but again, Brenda's cooking. I'll eat any day. Yeah. I trust Brenda. She's been around. I trust her. I trusted her immediately, but I knew her. She's not some strange person.
I know. And she laughs understand. And says, you don't know me well. Ooh. See, now I'm afraid. Now I have
know her well. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I misread how she meant that. Okay, got it. Yes. No, I didn't. Like, I recognized the name. I wasn't like, oh, yeah, she kept saying she was going to bring us one. Like, I knew all this.
Right.
But I'm still like, okay, before I think we're going to eat cheesecake, you need to tell me.
Uh-huh.
Are we actually
way, she
eating
blew
cheesecake?
us away with that because we expected small cheesecake.
Oh, yeah.
Huge. Delicious cheesecake that was delicious. It was wonderful. Mm-hmm. Hope to get to enjoy it again. Hope to get to hang out with Brenda again. But it's like Lady Gwen ordered us these lovely cups that we have for the show. It gave us merch
and decided to surprise us.
Yes, decided to surprise us, and that box sat there for a good bit before I was like, okay, yeah, we can open it.
Yeah, because we don't know who it's from.
Right.
And it's like, are you expecting anything? No. Are you expecting anything? No. Where'd this come from? Why is this here? Right. I don't know this company. I don't know anything about this company. I don't know what this is. Mm-hmm. Is this a package bomb? Mm-hmm. Are we going to open this?
Well, it's like my YouTube video on Wednesday you guys are going to get to see. I'm glad they sent it that way. If they had sent it in brown paper wrapping, I probably would still be sitting with a box on my front porch, and I'd be very regretful of it.
You're really
all right, guys. On to it, Fran. Let's wrap this up.
All right. Of course, we want to thank Beverly Walker, Mika G, Kathy, Mary Winfield, Brenda Bryant, Ashley Gish, Shannon C, Shannon D, the ever-wonderful Lady Gwendolyn, Charles Shaw, and Dottie the Psychic. If you'd like to learn more about us, the show, or how YouTube can become one of our lovely Patreons and enjoy all the benefits our baristas receive, please visit us at pcspnetwork.com.
Guys, be safe. If you're partying this weekend, keep your drink in your hand or finish your drink before you hit the dance floor. Don't trust your hookup because they are just a hookup, even though they may be your eternal lover. It doesn't matter. You don't trust them to begin with. Let them earn that trust. And as always, wash your hands, wear your mask where you feel it necessary. If you haven't gotten your vaccine, get your vaccine. And remember to vote. We have primaries coming in, and we need to clear some houses. All right, guys. Until then, good night, y'all.
Good night.
This is a calm before the storm. You know what's coming, so be warned. You can't stop